Hello everyone and welcome to another very exciting video in which I will talk about the H1b visa for residency applicants with a specialized immigration lawyer. Welcome Naveen again to the channel.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So today we will be talking about the H1b visa, which is another type of visa that residency applicants can be on. Can you please let us know, give us a little bit of insight of what is the H1b visa and why people would prefer to be on that over the J1?
Absolutely. So the H1b is the most common work visa. So everyone, all different professions will apply for an H1b. The benefit of the H1b is that you can avoid the 2-year home residence requirement, which kicks in when you're on a J1. So there are a lot of people who would prefer the H1b specifically for that reason. The H1b, unlike the J1 where you just need USMLE steps 1 and 2, if you're trying for an H1b for residency, you want to make sure that you have USMLE step 3 done as well, because if you don't have that, then you're not able to actually apply for the H1. So just keep in mind that if you are trying for the H1b for residency to just have all 3 steps done, the program needs to be supportive of an H1b. The H1b can be quite costly now. The filing fees have gone up. So that's something to keep in mind. And then lastly, the H1b has a 6-year limit. So if you've already used up some of your H1b time doing research, then just keep that in mind as well, that there is a 6-year limit for H1s. There is a way to go beyond that 6 years if you have started a green card process. So just to keep that in mind as well, if you're going down a path that may take longer than 6 years to complete.
These are great points. And let's start with the step 3. That's a very great, important point when it comes to applying to the H1b visa, because a lot of people might not be familiar that, with the timeline of getting an H1b visa. Because if you match into residency in mid-March usually, and now you're like, oh, I want to get this H1b visa, the program I matched in offers that. So now you're studying for at least 2 to 3 weeks for the step 3 exam. As you know, it takes 3 weeks approximately to get the result. So now we're like around the end of May, and that might be too late for you to get the H1b. As a follow-up on this point, when do they need to get their step 3 done to be able to process the visa on time?
So the petition needs to be approved before somebody can start working. So just working backwards from that, with a request for premium processing, where through which the USCIS, which is the agency that adjudicates H1b petitions, they, if you file with this additional filing fee of $2,805, which is quite hefty, then they are committed to adjudicating the case within 15 working days. So they've actually changed that from 15 calendar days to 15 working days. So just want to make sure then that you are filing the petition at least a month out before your start date to give enough time for the petition to be filed, adjudicated, for you to receive the approval notice in order to start the program. The employer, the petitioner, they also need about 3 weeks at minimum to prepare and file the petition. So ideally, the process should be started by end of April, so they have the good month to put the case together and file it, and then with the premium processing have the petition approved before the start date. If your start date is mid-June, then obviously you're going to move that earlier and try and have this started by mid-April. The other thing to keep in mind is that although they have those 15 working days to adjudicate the petition, it doesn't necessarily mean that the case is going to be approved within that time. They can issue a request for evidence if there's something missing. So that may further delay the approval of the petition. So even if you're filing with what you think is enough time, if there is a request for evidence, then it's just going to draw out the process a little bit longer.
Yeah, so think about that. We're talking now about premium processing. We're not talking about the regular processing. So with the premium processing, you still need to probably get done with your step 3 before you even know your match result. So that's why you need to be well prepared for that, because I've seen situations where people just, go to the exam and they actually fail. So in that case, you didn't, meet your goal of passing the exam. So make sure you're well prepared. So that means you need to probably start preparing around January to study well and get the exam done and pass it and get your result by the time you need this whole process, to be completed. So that's an important point. Another point you mentioned is the number of years. So let's say somebody started on a neurosurgery residency. That's 7 years, and some people want to do a fellowship. That's probably like 8 years or 9 years. So if they didn't apply for a green card during that time period, is there any way around that? Or, that's set stone, 6 years, you can't extend that?
Yeah, you can't extend it. So the only way to extend beyond 6 years is either recapturing days that you spent outside the United States, but honestly, you don't have enough time, for vacation or sabbaticals during training to recapture those days. So you do need to have a green card process filed. If it's filed before your 5th year begins, then you are able to get the 7th or 8th year, like 1-year extensions. If your green card process is filed and approved, then depending on whether or not there's a green card visa number available to you, you can get an extension in 3-year increments. So for people who are in neurosurgery, I'm sure they're publishing a lot. So maybe they can apply self-petition for a green card based on extraordinary ability, or under the national interest waiver petition, which are both self-petition driven immigrant petitions. So maybe, think about continuing to do research and publish during your training so that you're building a good, strong case for a self-petitioned green card application. So those are the only ways, quite frankly, to extend it. The other way may be to have somebody do a perm-based labor certification for you. So that's an employer-driven application, but that's more difficult if you're still in the middle of your training to secure a job without having completed your residency.
Exactly. Yeah, these are very great points about things to consider when you're deciding between the J1 and H1, because most applicants know that H1 overall is a better visa, but in these situations, it might not be the best for your situation. And Naveen, we talked about that multiple times about the preference of programs to pick J1 over H1. Can you tell our viewers why do programs prefer to do J1 over H1? Why don't they like that type of visa?
Because H1Bs are expensive. That's really what it comes down to. For an H1B petition, there are legal fees and there are government filing fees involved. So the institution is the one, the medical center, the facility is the one that's filing the petition with USCIS. With the J1, it's just driven by ECFMG. They're issuing you the DS 2019. They're the program sponsors for the J1. So to be quite frank, it's easier for programs to just have it done through ECFMG, and typically that is the reason they prefer supporting J1s over H1s. One other thing I will mention for for people who decide to do H1, when you're doing H1B for graduate medical education, you're working at a teaching hospital that's affiliated with a medical school, right? And so you are considered to be cap-exempt. So there's a quota, an annual quota of H1B numbers, and it's 65,000 for what we call the regular cap. And then there's another 20,000 that's set aside for people with advanced degrees from a U.S. institution or university. So if you do your residency on an H1, and it's a 3-year residency and you're done, like you don't want to pursue any more fellowship, and now you would like to get a job as an attending physician in private practice, just keep in mind that you are now subject to that annual cap. And so you would need to, if you have that job offer, you may need to go through the annual H1B registration, which happens in March. And then if you're selected in that annual registration lottery, then you would then be able to start your H1B job in October, which is the beginning of a fiscal year. So the chances of being selected in the lottery right now are about 30%, the odds are not good. And then if you are selected, you're not able to start until October. So if your program ends in July, there's going to be a 3-month gap, and you'll go home, wait it out, and then get your visa and come back to the US in October to start your job.
Yeah, this is a great point I was not aware of. As every time we talk, I learn something new, and that's why I tell people, if there are a lot of nuances that you might not be aware of based on your situation, and it's always helpful to get the advice of somebody who is experienced with this to guide you through that process. So if these people decide to work in academic center, that would not be a problem after their graduation?
Yes, right. So if you work in a major medical institution, then it's fine, because they're not subject to that annual cap.
Interesting. And as we talked, if you are on H1, you would be able to get a green card, no issue, after you're done with your residency, if you qualify for that. For example, if you got married to a US citizen, unlike the J1 where you have to complete your 2 year before you do that.
Right, right. And then the other possibility is an O1. You can always transition from the H1 to an O1 visa as a person of extraordinary ability. But again, you do need to make sure you have enough publications to support an O1.
And finally, for those who are dependent on the H1 person, their partner, their children, what kind of visa do they come on when their partner is in the US on an H1, and what can they do and not do while during that time?
So the partner, they need to be married. So assuming they have the marriage certificate, the partner can apply for the H4 visa. The H4 allows them to be in the United States to accompany their spouse, but they're not able to work. They can go to school, but they cannot work. And if they want to work, they would need to obtain their own work visa. So they would try for their own H1b. And if your primary H1b person does have a green card case in process and they have an approved petition, then it's only in those circumstances could the H4 spouse apply for an employment authorization document. So there are limited circumstances when the H4 spouse can get an employment authorization card, but it does require the H1b primary visa holder to have an approved immigrant petition.
Nice. Awesome. That brings us to the end of this interview. That was an extremely insightful discussion about the H1b. For those who are applying to the match, if you need help with your, the overall advice on the process, how to match into residency, personal statement, research, ERAS application, don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you need help with visa stuff, don't hesitate to reach out to Naveen, because she'll probably be better help than us for that. I wish you best of luck on your application and your journey in the US. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your colleagues who are also applying for something similar so they can get the benefit from that. Wish you best of luck on your journey, and see you in future videos.